but you know each other well enough that you can be honest and like you said, call them out on their BS. Uh, and what you were talking about before, working out these scenarios ahead of time is like creating a good SOP for the business and friendship. What's going to happen if we have a disagreement? Well, here's the process we'll go through, and that comes from experience. It comes from a lifetime of friendship. It reminds me of a recent post in one of the real estate group, Facebook groups, where somebody was asking about uh, it was allowing late rent, partial rent from one of their tenants as a problem tenant. And I said, you gotta hold that's got to be tantamount, right? You cannot accept late payments, put it into the lease, and then oh no, it was quarterly inspections, walkthroughs, and didn't want to, invade privacy. I said, it's your property, and that you need to know what's in there. And the contract says that you have to hold up your end of that as a landlord. That means you need to make sure that you're providing the best, uh, structure, the best uh, dwelling that you possibly can for this tenant, and they're holding up their end. So it's like good, was it strong fences make good neighbors, and these understandings, yeah, make good partnerships. Put it in the contract, put it in your SOP, talk it out, and it seems like you guys do. You guys are, I'm guessing, talk constantly with each other about, on the mic, off the mic, within your mastermind. Um, it's great to have that kind of person. Uh, Stuart, was it you in a recent episode? You were talking about a friend of kind of a distant acquaintance type friend who called you up about just kind of unloading on you, dumping some emotional baggage, and you said, I'm not your guy. You need your guy." Uh, it's a close friend that you can really bounce those things off of. What's that about? What do you mean, your guy?
Yeah, I'll take it. It was somebody. It's fascinating too because before this, we hit record. I had done a post this morning. Stu did a post yesterday about appropriate age for kids to have cell phones, and then I followed up on that today and kind of shifted the focus on the responsibility from the kids and the impacts on them to us as parents, right? And why that made me think of it is one of the guys responded, "Screens take souls." Like that was his response. And I've not responded yet, but I thought about that. And I'm like, well, that's not really true because I'm assuming a lot of the positive content we consume and people we meet on LinkedIn is through a screen. So like it can't be that soul taking it. And to your point, the conversation was prompted with this gentleman via LinkedIn, and it was someone I had known years and years ago in high school. We hadn't talked forever, and he just was going through a hard time. And so I called him, and I would not have known that if not for LinkedIn. So I reached out. I'm like, "Hey, dude, here's my number. Call me." And or better yet, give me your number and I'll call you. I'll take the responsibility off of you and put it on me. I'll call you. And I called him. And we had this great conversation. But that, to your point, Aaron, at the end of the conversation, I was like, look, dude, like you have to have this. You have to have, I'm not the guy. You're in Texas. I'm here. I'm not your guy. But you have to be so intentional with finding those people. And here's the other side of this. A lot of times when we talk about responsibility, a lot of us just we push off the responsibility of friendship, and we heard this the other day on a guest that we had. He describes friendship as it's not flowers blooming. It's not something it's more like a woodworking project, right? And why I think that's relevant is a lot of us sit back and we wait, and that includes in our relationship. So like I'm very much like, hey, if there's some issues, we need to address it now. Stu is more like, hey, if there's some issues, let's just bury our feelings deep deep inside and just don't talk about it forever. And so, and I'm joking, he'll bring things to me too, right? But I think it's critical, even in a 25-year best friendship, you have to be willing to step out of your comfort and be like, hey, dude, let's talk about this. In your marriage, you have to be willing to step out of just the letting things kind of lay and have that conversation. Well, if you also have to do that if you want to be friend, if you want to make friends, like you have to put the effort out there to do that too. Be the person that you want to be around. And so I think, to fully answer your question, I was telling him very intentionally to not create any kind of reliance on our relationship unless we built a relationship and that was what we agreed to, but not to be a builder. I was not a shoulder to continuously come to. I was encouraging him to get out and make friends so that he could have a shoulder to walk next to, shoulder to shoulder with another dude and have real conversations because I was missing in his life. And I think all of us could really, really stand, especially us dudes. Women are way better at it than we are, but especially us dudes. Like we have to be so intentional with our friendships because it's a beautiful thing to have, and it's a death sentence to not have. Literally, that's what the data shows. And so that's part of the, you talk about impact. If I could encourage guys and show them, hey, having friends is really, really awesome. It's fun. It's super dope. And it also could save your life. Like that's impact, right? And I want dudes to have those kind of relationships and to grow into those things. And then ultimately, maybe those things also grow into partnerships through their intentionality. And maybe they start businesses and maybe they start making different impacts that they never thought they could because they wound themselves with another person.
It seems to be a recurring theme about intentional friendship. It doesn't, strong friendships, relationships, they don't just happen, right? You've got to put the effort in to building those relationships, those connections. Same thing with marriage and, love, being an intentional partner to your spouse. And of course, parenthood. Ugh, I just inadvertently made the connection, kinetic man. Uh, but it's action, right? It's doing the job. You can't just show up and expect it to happen on its own. You got to live the role, and that. Yeah, I think it was you guys who mentioned recommended a book I loved was the intentional fatherhood uh, and the
Yeah, The
intentional
Intentional
father.
Father by
Yeah,
John Tyson.
and I loved the uh, it was the rite of passage, the ritual of teaching a son to become, go from boy to man, but that's an intentional teaching act from the father passed down to the son. And I actually love the idea of the ritualized rite of passage.